So, to continue from last time, we started the, we need the, Kobe, we're still using the sheet from last time.
Oh, I never got that. I think. Wait, did I get it and put it in my locker? It wasn't here. Because the last time I wasn't sure we had you.
Where we spoke about genotype, phenotype, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So let's just
I made copies for everybody.
Yeah, so maybe Gavi took his copy.
Okie dokie. No problem. Okay.
On which page are we?
Whatever. So I actually want to move it along a little bit. This in Nishmas Avram was focused mainly on we're looking at androgynous and the status of androgynous and what one can and should be able to do to an androgynous to modify to their halachically recognized gender status. For example, what about a cirrus? What would be the halacha of, is there an issur of cirrus of an androgynous? That's something we'll come to. As castration, making them sterile, by removing one set of genitalia, etc. So let's, because I want to hurry it along. Let's bring in a new source over here.
We left off at 4.
I know, but I'm going to move it along because I've got some new. You've got a new sheet there as well, which I want to get into as well. Let's go to page Kuf Lamed Zayin. Can you see page Kuf Lamed Zayin there?
Yes.
The last paragraph on the page. Umuva b'shvilei harafua. Yes, you have that?
Yeah.
Umuva b'shvilei harafua. It is brought in the Sefer Shvilei Harafua. Alidei Hagon, I presume it is Reb Simcha Kohen Cook. Now Zatzal. B'shem Reb Eliashiv. Zatzal. Shenishal. Rabbi Eliashiv was asked, this is the first time we've brought Rabbi Eliashiv into this discussion, and I do believe he has another tshuva on this in Kovetz Tshuvos, which I still need to look at. But here's the question. Misha noilad leloy eivar zochar ubeloy eivar nekeva. So this is kind of the opposite almost of an androgynous. Somebody who was born with no apparent phenotype, with no apparent genitals. V'kosev. And you'll see what the context is here. He writes as follows. Ochein, verily, it is true. B'chazdei David, that is one of the classic commentators on the Tosefta in Bikurim, he writes, quote, Umayda mistama hocha, v'lo yochlu chachomim lahachriya. When Chazal write about an androgynous, that Chazal were, quote, unable to decide, to determine whether an androgynous is a Zachar or a Nekeva, Hachi Perushay. This is what it means. When Chazal used the Lashon, they could not, lo yochlu, they were unable. Hachi Perushay, do you know what it means? Classic rabbinic statement. Yechelim heim. Oh boy, they were very able, very capable. They absolutely were capable. Ukumoshe Kosov Chachmei HaTeva, as the Chachmei HaTeva have written, the Ikaminaihu, Misha Ikri Zocha, V'Simenan HaKevus Tofel, V'ikanama Ipcha, because fundamentally, an androgynous is fundamentally one or the other. Very often there is one where the phenotype and possibly even the genotype, I don't know, is primary and the other one is clearly very secondary. Elo, but this is Pshat, and this teaches us a lot. Chazal did not want to be so arbitrary, to give license to people to decide, oh, I am primarily male, or I am primarily female, and therefore I'll do this or I'll do that. And therefore, rather, they said, Hilkoch achade dosha ba'anpayu. The Chazdei David says an incredible thing. When Chazal say about an androgynous that Chazal were unable to determine which one they were, it doesn't mean they were unable. In many cases, they would have been quite easy able to determine, because in some cases, it's not too difficult to determine that this person is actually fundamental, although despite the fact they may have both genitalia, but there are various other secondary characteristics which help us determine that actually this is a male. But Chazal, and this is an important idea in Psak as well, it's a kind of a low plug. You've come across low plug, right? And especially in an area as sensitive as this, where Chazal create uniform legislation, not allowing for the few cases, and I don't know whether I should say it's right if I'm saying the few, not allowing for self-determination in complicated cases. And therefore, although in a number of cases they may well have been able to be machriya, but it gets messy, and then people start doing their own thing, and therefore they said, what we do with an androgynous is we are not going to be machriya, and we are going to place upon this androgynous being the chumras of being both male and female. That's the opinion of the Chasdei David. Quite a fascinating opinion. Ad kan l'shen shel Chasdei David, quoted by Rabbi Elyashiv. Ulechura dvarav tzarich mi pashtus divrei harambam. It would appear, asks Rabbi Elyashiv, that the Rambam would appear to be not in agreement with this, because the Rambam paskins habo al androgynous derech zachrusoi chayav. If somebody has sexual relations with an androgynous, you are chayav. Hainu kores b'mezid v'chatos b'shegig. Now, if we are treating somebody who presumably rapes, or whether it's consensual or not, but somebody who has intercourse with an androgynous is derech zachrusoi and is chayav kores, that means we are treating them as definitively being zachar. Ustama keperushoi de'ein shum hevdel b'simonei heker sheloi ubechol gavni. In all cases, if he's an androgynous, kefi ma sheishri shalonu b'perek val. And if you're going to say, sorry, Gamalan, where are we? Yeah, that was Kuflam. Kuflam Ches. That means, in other words, now if the Chasdei David is right, then there's no way we should be able to put this person to death. Or to say definitively the Rambam should be unable to pass him, this is chorus. Maybe he's one of those people who aliba de emes is male or female, and therefore there wouldn't be chorus in this case. It's one thing to say, and let me give you a cute example. It's totally different, but it to point out something interesting. I'll go off topic for 3 minutes just because it's also interesting, which is one of the fascinating topics, which maybe we can do some stuff on now that I'm thinking of it, is if you're ever called upon to prove the existence of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Which is fascinating, because without Torah Sheba'al Peh, we have nothing. We absolutely have nothing. Yeah? And that is deliberate, but that's another story for another time. Without the Torah Sheba'al Peh, there's a Hanukkah connection here as well, by the way. The Gemara says in Gittin Daf Samach, on the Posuk in Kisisa, Ki al pi hadvarim ha'ele karati itcha bris ve'es Yisrael. Al pi hadvarim ha'ele, says Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu after the Egel, al pi hadvarim ha'ele, I make an everlasting covenant between you and Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara says al pi hadvarim ha'ele refers to Torah Sheba'al Peh. Because the point of a bris, as Rav Hutner and others point out, what is a bris? A bris is a covenant. Groucho Marx, I think it was, who said, I don't want to be a part of a club that would have me as a member. The point of a club is that, by definition, it is exclusive. There's no point in having a club if anybody can join. The point of being a club is it's exclusive. That means it excludes. A covenant is only between you and me. Bris, Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, a Gentile's not allowed to keep Shabbos. It's a violation of that bris. Torah Sheba'al Peh is that which, in other words, what do we mean by Torah Sheba'al Peh? The ability to interpret the Torah in a coherent manner and put it into a set of living, practical halachas that we can live by thousands of years later, which we are doing, is only on the basis of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Because if you read the Chumash as a set of instructions, which it's meant to be, it is lousy. I mean, it's deliberately lousy. What do I mean by that? I don't mean to be disrespectful, of course. I mean that it is, the Torah contradicts itself. Sheishas yomim teichel matzos, shivas yomim teichel matzos. Hello? Yeah? And there's plenty of other things. And the point is that it is Torah Sheba'al Peh which divides, which separates us. And this is really what the Hanukkah struggle was about. We can have multiculturalism. You know, we want to translate your Torah. We want it. But the Chumash you can have. You can translate the Chumash, but the Chumash, it's not going to help you. Because if you translate the Chumash, you haven't got a clue how to live. That's the point. How would you keep Shabbos from the Chumash? How would you keep pretty much anything? Toitofos bein einecha. What on earth is that? What is Rosh Hashanah? On the first day of the 7th month, it shall be a day of blowing. Your nose? I mean, it really is, and that is the point. So we have the Torah Sheba'al Peh. So one of this is a whole subtopic, which is a fascinating topic. How could you prove the existence of the Torah Sheba'al Peh from within the Torah Sheba'al Peh? So the argument I've given you is a bit of a utilitarian argument, right? It's a practical argument, but there are indications within the Chumash itself. Here's one of them. Umake oviv ve'imoi mois yumos. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, we had a system, although no longer at the moment currently in use, we don't have capital punishment. But it's still there in the Torah. And there was a time when it was operative. Okay? So here is your legal thing. What does vav mean in a clause, in a phrase?
Yeah.
Is that the only thing it can mean?
No.
What can it also mean?
For a verb, maybe? Like the...
What can vav? Vav can mean...
The verb.
It can be a connective. It can also, but that's as an and. But vav in the Torah can also mean...
A hook.
Good. Vavim lamudim. Good. But you're going to complicate it.
So...
It can mean or.
Okay, right.
Hello? Earth calling Mars? So here's a very simple question.
Right.
Do you have to hit your mother and your father to be put to death? Or is it your mother or your father?
Right.
A little bit of a difference. To the guy who's hit his mother and not his father is not his mother, it's the difference between life and death. This is a legal code. This is pretty important stuff. We know from the Torah many places Vav can mean or and Vav can mean and. So how are you going to decide? You're just going to make it up? What are you going to do? Flip a coin? Off with his head? Not off with his head? Heads you lose, tails you win. Sorry. How are you going to do this? So obviously we have a Masorah as to how to translate the posuk so that it has some practical meaning, something that we can put into existence. That's just, by the way, one of the proofs. Rabbi Shua Heller discusses this proof, if I'm not mistaken. Al kol panim. That was a bit of a digression, but the point is as follows. Here's the tenuous link to what we're discussing. And that is as follows. It is one thing to be able to put a chumrah on somebody, an androgynous. We'll give you the chumras of being male and the chumras of being female. It's quite another to definitively get rid of them. Yeah. The Rambam is paskening. Now, in other words, if the Chastei David is right, asks Rabbi Eliashiv, such a great kasha. If the Chastei David is right, that there were many cases where Chazal, of course, when it says Lo Yicholim Nachriya, it means, of course, they could be Machriya, but they chose not to. They chose not to definitively allow for an androgynous to then be reclassified as, in some cases, as a Zocha or as an Akeva. But we deliberately, for the purposes of uniformity of legislation and practice, to keep it simple, to continue to put upon him the chumras of both male and female. But if there was a case where lemaisa, as we say, right? In essence, he is a male or a female, then how can the Rambam paskin definitively that in all cases of androgynous, you're chayav misa? That's his question. Awesome question. You hear? Ulefi divrei Chasdei David. Second line. Halo yishtana dinoi ve'imivna gufa v'simnei heki yishon nekeva dinoi kenekeva v'rak mishum loy plug hish v'rabbanim midusayim There might be a way around it, and this is the opinion of the Rash, that it could be that you be chayiv misa even if he has the din of an akeva, even if he has the din of a zacha. That's one possibility. Ume'atal, so skip 2-3 lines. To the word beginning of the line is ume'atal benidon didon. Ume'atal, and now benidon didon in our case, shenoilad beloy evori nakvus nekevus, leloy mokim kamoy, leloy rechem, leloy shachlus, v'shipul akeres keish v'klei isha. The case that presented him was somebody who had apparently no genitalia at all. V'av degam gid ein loy. He doesn't have a bris milah, a penis either. There are recessed testicles. He grew breasts and he looks like a female. It should be a suffix chorus. At least it should be a suffix chorus. What would be if the surgeons would, through plastic surgery, create an artificial female genitalia? He says that is clearly does not have the status, because it's artificial. It does not have the status of natural female genitalia. However, he goes on, the halacha is paskin din Even Ha'ezer Siman Chav Beis, that if somebody rapes a woman derech evorim. So even if one, I don't have to put this very politely, but even if one didn't do so in the normal, in the natural manner, right? So it would still be awesome. So you've still got the problem.
With hormones, it's also called artificial.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. And this was Rabbi Elyashiv discussing a very, very rare case where there is apparently no genitalia at all. A classic androgynous is where there is both sets of genitalia. And then kal v'chomer, when we're talking about a case of somebody who is male and wishes to transition, or female and wishes to transition, it seems pretty obvious that there would be no license to do so, and their status would not change. That seems to be the opinion of Rabbi Elyashiv. We're now going to look at a few more tshuvas on the topic. I want to draw your attention here. I'm going to skip out the first one because we're running a bit late. Go to the second page on the thing that I've just sent you. And this is an absolutely fascinating tshuva. I haven't managed to find yet the date of this. I should maybe try and look inside. This is Diane Grossnas, who was Diane in London based in. Yeah. And here's the shaila. Okay? Got it? So, Simon Memtes in Shut Lev Aryeh, Chelik Beis Simon Memtes. Right. B'Me'ura, here's the case. B'Me'ura Mufla, in this crazy, and today we would say this crazy case, right? Mm-hmm. This freaky, this unusual case, She'ira Be'isha Nasa Isha, with a man that became a woman. Now, take those words under advisement. The following crazy story happened with somebody, a man who married a woman, had children. And after a prolonged and difficult illness, his body started changing, and he became, and we'll see, it'll become clearer, and then he became a woman. And then this woman, this guy, now a woman, got married to a man in civil marriage, b'nisuin ezrachim. V'ha'isha ha'aluva, Nebuch, the poor woman, his wife, yes, shenishara b'li baal, she doesn't have a husband. Sheyeles ma dina im hi muteres li'nosil acher. Does she require a get, or can she just go ahead and get married without a get? Again, let's just go over the case, and we'll see how he attacks it. And I've given you some of the ammunition. I gave you some of the details last week. Let's see if you can make the correct connection without cheating. Don't look inside. So here's the thing. Again, there's a guy, marries, has a family, and then has a prolonged illness, and becomes a woman. He doesn't give us any more detail of this, and we'll get some more detail later. He then goes, he, who is now a she, then goes and marries a man, who marries a man civilly, and the woman, the first wife, wants to know, does she require a get? Presumably he didn't want to give a get, I imagine. What were you going to say, Gabi?
Does she need a get? I mean,
guys, what would you think on the basis of what you've been? What would you?
Like the question is if that's still the same person to me.
Okay.
Because we say if we treat this person as the core is the same but the gender changed, then we actually should require a get. But if we treat the person as a new person because of the gender change, we would say, no, it's a different person. So therefore, everything else is history.
Is it?
Everything else.
I mean, here's you're raising a very interesting philosophical point as well. Personhood.
Yeah.
Let me just throw out a philosophical question. Okay, I am a man, right? What would be if I were, or anybody, were to successfully, from a halachic perspective, see, this is what we're talking from, transition and become a woman? Does that mean that I no longer exist, or I am now as the same person, but I've changed the gender? I mean, so for example, well, that's part of the question. That's part of the question.
We have an opinion who said that
Go
the
on.
evolution is not valid anymore if there
He
was
disappeared.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good. You made, this is the connection I was hoping for. But we're going to come right to that in a second. Very good. Very good. You're both absolutely right. But the way Gabi phrased it, I had to jump on you because there's an underlying, a really, what I find absolutely fascinating thing. You know, your memories, that person's memories, yes, we know hormone can affect personality. It can affect the way you approach things. But who says that personhood, even let's say we were to accept a concept of absolute legitimate change of gender, does that mean that person is not there? If the person is there, maybe the question is, what is the definition of personhood? What is it of self? Who says it's just based on gender?
The same neshama is still there. So
Whoa, don't get started with the neshama. Okay. I've been so well behaved. I have.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'm very proud. I'm just showing off. Because I had such a Yetzer Hara to start with the Gilgulim and all this stuff, which we're still going to do, by the way. Because we've noticed I've done very little hashkafa on this. We're going to get back to that. I will just, okay, now that you've, can you have a female soul in a male body and vice versa? The answer is absolutely yes. Yeah. And we'll come back to that a lot later. But here I'll just throw out one fascinating point. The Mogen Avram in Hilchos Birchas HaShachar quotes the Tikkunim, the Zohar, as he often does, by the way. And he says, you ready? Freak you out? He says in the morning when we say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shelo yasani goy, shelo yasani eved, shelo yasani isha. You are thanking Hashem and you are trusting and hoping that this morning shenosat bi moidani lefanecha melchagim shechazarto bi nishmosi. I hope, please Hashem, this morning that you didn't give me back the neshama of a goy, the neshama of an eved, or the neshama of an isha, because it could happen theoretically.
Right.
It's an absolute possibility. And we are thanking and hoping him, and that's what we're saying in Moidani. Moidani Fanecha. I've gone blank. Melech HaGem Shechazarto bi nishmosi. That you gave me back my neshama, and not the neshama of a goy, of an eved, or of an isha. And that's part we should have come on when you have a bracha.
Rough, but
yes.
Would there be any nafkamina for that?
In halacha, probably not.
So
I'm asking. But it's still that we should know this concept, because it does have, we should be aware of this concept. That's all it's not an halacha, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And it could be one person got a female soul back, a man, and then a month later he got back his real soul.
Or the next day.
Initials.
The next day. Right. Oh, absolutely. And this is, and you also have to understand the mechanism of, because people talk about Gilgulim, but it's much more complicated than that. There is something called Ibur Neshama. There is something called where you can connect to bits of a Neshama. It's complicated. The Neshama has an anatomy. we use the word neshama generically. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida, and each of them, if you've learned nefesh hachayim or tanya or whatever, and each of them subdivides into ilamois and the spherois, and it's complicated. It's a complicated organism with lots and lots of, and it is possible, and this explains lots of fascinating things. I will do some work on it later, probably next Zman. Let's see what Dayan Grossen asks, how he approaches this. V'yesoid hashayla hu lechura b'mahus haheta demisas habal. He dives straight into the lomdus, like you said. It all depends on the lomdus. What is it? Why is it that when a man dies, the wife can remarry? What is it? What is the aside of the heter of misas habal? You know the story with Rabbi Akiva Eiger? Which one? How many do you know? You tell me. The story about this. How many stories about misas habal do you know with Rabbi Akiva Eiger? The story goes as follows. In Poznan, there was a shumad. There was somebody who was more religious, married his wife at Chuppah v'Kiddushin, refused to give her a get. And he refused to give her a get for a long time. And eventually the Rav Rabbi Akiva Eiger called him in, and he was not interested. And the Rabbi Akiva Eiger said to him, tell me, he said, when you were, before you went off, as a Chayda Yingel, hast Amal gelernt a Mishnah in Kiddushin in Chayda? He said, yes. He said, tell me, let's learn together the first Mishnah in Kiddushin. Hoish on niknes b'shloisha drachim v'koina atzma b'shtei drachim niknes v'kesem b'shtar b'biyah v'koina atzma. And here Rabbi Akiva Eiger shouted uncharacteristically, v'koina es atzma b'get u'b'misas habal. Get or misas habal. These are the options the Torah Kadosh is giving you. Get or misas habal.
And only those.
And the guy said, He walked out of the base tent, fell down on the steps outside, broke his neck and died. It's Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Beget or b'misas habal. Yeah. Now, how does it work? How does it work? Misas habal. What's the lomdus? Here's the shaila. Im hu mitam she'ein baal. Maybe the pshat is, it's just because there is no baal. There is no baal. You can't have a marriage if there is only one partner, right? And maybe the pshat, when he's dead, he's gone. He's gone. He's not alive. Or maybe mitam she'etzem hamisa poyel chalois eta. Dying is a matter. Listen carefully to the language of the lomdus. Is the pshat the husband is not present? He's AWOL. He's not present. And if he's not present, there's no husband present. You can't have the institution of marriage depends, so I am told, on the presence of two partners, right? You need a husband and a wife. Takes two to tango. No husband, no marriage. It's not pshat that the marriage is dissolved. There's nothing which breaks the marriage, that is matir, that overrides, that cancels, that abrogates. You get the point? Yeah, the marriage. No, it's just there can be no marriage because there is no baal. Therefore, mimela, there's no marriage. Or do I say no? There was a marriage, but death, the act of dying, if there is such a thing, separate shaila. But misa is a matir. It is misa. It is the dying that releases the bond. Nafkemina. If the pshat is, it's just that there is no marriage, there is no baal, there's no husband. In this scenario, and he seems to be accepting he's kind of a woman, so there's no husband here. Assuming that we accept that he is not a man, then the marriage is dissolved mimela, because in order to have a marriage you need a husband and a wife, and there is no husband, so game over. Right? Shari Eina Ish, Shari Zek Misa, it's like Isha, Misa, and then the woman would be mutter without a get. But if you're going to say, no, that's not the pshat. The pshat is that Misa is a matter, it releases the bonds, it breaks the state of marriage. Well, here he hasn't died. The guy, well, the person is still here. He's here. He, she, it. The person is here. So you can't. There's been no misa to be matir. So if that's the lomdus, then they would still need a get. Imken after ein baal. Even if we were to concede that there is no baal, Mikol Mokim, Kivin Shalai Mesa Baal Mamish, Adain Hi Asura, Vaimedes, Harry Keishes Ish Gumur Lachalo, Yonim Abalis, Aleha Bemisakoi. This is a really important shaila. Let's quickly rush to the next bit, just 2 minutes. In a way, I don't want to rush it. But here, remember I mentioned to you last week the Trumas Hadeshen. This is the Trumas Hadeshen where about the wife of Eliyahu Hanavi. This is the shaila. Yeah? What happened with Eliyahu Hanavi? He became a malach. He's gone AWOL. He's not present, but he didn't die. So he's not here, but he's not dead. That is and this is what it's all going to revolve around. Okay, we'll have to stop here. Beseda.